Hey everyone, my name is Ryan. I'm excited today to tell you about a new product from Steelcase called cscape. Before I get into telling you about the product itself, I wanted to give you a little bit of background as to why we created it, some of the insights that we learned along the way. So for many years we've been hearing our customers and other folks that we talk to out in the world of work talk about being more collaborative. How that actually happens in the workplace, that's been an interesting transition, and we've seen many approaches from lowering panel heights a little bit to building more conference rooms. But we wanted to take a hard look at the way work was changing, look at collaboration in the workplace, and try to find a way of creating a better set of solutions for you to create a workplace that would evolve not just for the next few years, but the way that work is evolving over the course of the next 10 or 15 years. So when we look at collaboration in the workplace, one thing that's really important to note is that our ability to collaborate is based on how strong our social networks are at work. And you've probably experienced this in your own life. If you've ever been asked to go collaborate with another person, maybe create a presentation or work on some new project, your ability to be effective and quick and productive in that sort of situation is often dependent upon how well you know that person. If there is an established relationship, social networks are strong, you can get right at it and do a great job. If you don't know the people, and you've worked more in an isolated role, or they have, and you haven't gotten a chance to build that network, it can take a long time to get up to speed. And that's how collaboration gets affected so specifically by the kinds of relationships that exist within a team or across teams within the workplace. So what's important about collaboration is that we know it affects the speed of companies to be able to change, and all of us have experienced how much faster work is becoming. But the other thing that's drastically affected it is the role of mobile technologies. So if we think about the effect of mobile technologies on work, one of the things that we've seen metaphorically is that the workplace is becoming a little more like a home than a hotel. And let me tell you what I mean by that. If you think about a hotel, it's a big chunk of real estate divvied up into individual spaces. And when you're in the hotel, most of the time, you're going to be in your space. That's kind of the way the workspace has been for a long time, mostly divided into individual spaces, and there was an assumption that you did most of your work in your workstation. But today, because mobile technologies allow us to work a lot of different places and we need to be more collaborative, the workspace is beginning to function more like a home. And by that I mean you still have your space, a bedroom, but there's a whole range of spaces where you can do a variety of work and you can begin to choose the place that's right for the type of work you're doing today. So we decided to step back, take a look at all the great products we've made over the years and think about if we were to add a product into our mix that really functioned as that home base for this new type of work environment, one that was built around the use of mobile technologies, built around the need to really know your neighbors, those people that are coming in to get to know you and that you want to know better, what would it look like? And that's how we came up with cscape, which stands for Collaborative Landscape, and I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you about that product now. Instead of starting by showing you each individual component of the product, I thought I'd actually step back for a second and talk a little bit about the sort of behaviors that we see happening in the workplace today. So you may have heard Steelcase in the past talk about user-centered design or user-centered behavior. This is just another way of saying, let's really take a look at a day in the life of an employee in a work environment and begin to design products around the way people work. So for me, and maybe you, one of the important parts of my daily work life is my bag. So as people have become more nomadic, we talked about those mobile technologies changing the way people work. It seems like the bag becomes more and more a part of your daily work life. You take it to work, you take it to home. It's really representation in a lot of ways of that work-life blend that we've got going on. When most people get to their workstation, it's all about setting up technology, unpacking the bag. So if you're a laptop user, you know that you're going to get out the laptop, then you're going to get out your cord, and then you're going to have that process where you plug in. You've probably all experienced this in the past, but you've probably had a choice of either tornado drill, get into the desk, search for an outlet, find a place to plug in, or maybe in your workplace you've got outlets that are above the work surface. And that's great, except that it doesn't necessarily tell you what you can do with the cord. And that's important. So in smaller workstations, and by the way, I should stop here for a moment to talk about smaller workstations. Because people are out and about, spending less time at their workstations, we've seen the average size workstation get smaller and smaller. 4 or 5 years ago, 64 square feet, 8 by 8, pretty common size. Today, 36 square feet, becoming more common. This particular workstation that I'm going to show you is 27.5 square feet. It's 5 by 5.5. So we're kind of taking a look at a really small station and kind of testing it against whether or not it can be a comfortable work environment for you and I to be able to spend our time. In a workstation that small, you're probably going to have one primary work surface. And if I get back to this notion of the cord, it's great to be able to not have to go under the desk to be able to plug in. But if that outlet's above the work surface, I've got this to contend with. And when there's only one primary work surface, we know from the way people work that people are probably going to put their active work, papers, any electronic devices, etc., on the front. Likely might want to put some stacks of paper and things that they need throughout the day in the back of the work surface. If the cord occupies that zone, we've basically just taken away one of the most important parts of the primary work surface. So with cscape, we thought a little bit about what it would be like for a user to really have a great experience unpacking that technology, and we built in a lever underneath the work surface to expose what we call the connect zone. The connect zone has a couple of facets to it. One is that there's power and data access in the back. The second is there's not just access, but there's storage. So we can easily, without a lot of work, a lot of cable managers, etc., tuck that cable away. And then the third part is there's a rail, and we'll talk more about the rail later, but the rail is a chance for us to put work tools like LED lighting, paper storage, etc., on that rail and arrange it the way we like. So the connect zone, what it's done, is in this relatively small workstation. It's still giving me a place to put my laptop, but it's completely freed up all the workspace behind the laptop and around the laptop to make sure that I have the highest amount of usable work surface area. We didn't have anybody have to get on the ground. We don't have a mess. And that's where we started with the work surface. Another thing that I want to show you about the work surface is if I sit in a chair and I cozy up to the work surface, this leg design that we've put here enables another person to sit here without having any impediments to their legs, so that even in a really small workstation, we can have two people sitting side by side. Why is that important? Because if we look at collaboration, the way it takes place, I already talked to you a little bit about the need for social networks. If somebody comes over and they want to spend just a moment or two in my workstation, they shouldn't feel like they have to invade my personal zone. If we're able to do a little bit of side-by-side shoulder work around a laptop, that's a really comfortable position. And then if we decide that we're going to do some longer work or we're going to join up with 2 or 3 more people, we can go off and find a different type of collaborative setting for that work to take place. So the desk is built in such a way that it accommodates mobile technologies. It allows for somebody to easily sit next to me, and it provides me a really comfortable orientation to see my technology. I should note, this particular workstation is referred to as a benching station, meaning there's one long run of work surface. But cscape isn't limited from a parts and pieces standpoint to just that application. It's a really flexible system. It can do a lot of different applications with a very, very small number of parts. The number of model numbers in cscape compared to most furniture systems is very small, but it hasn't limited all the different configurations you can create because we created the pieces to be very flexible. Now, again, if I go back to the day of the life of the employee, this person's come in, set up their technology. Another thing to note is that it's really clear in this workstation what's my space and what's the person's space next to us. If you're like most, you've probably thought a little bit about privacy in the workplace. When we hear people talk about privacy, we usually think, well, there's a variety of facets to privacy. There's visual privacy. Can we see each other? We talked a little bit before about the need to see each other in a connected workplace. There's acoustical privacy. But then there's some other facets of privacy that really were thoughtfully considered in cscape. One we'd call informational privacy. That's just, can people see my stuff? Is there a place for me to put my own papers, my own information, my own laptop that isn't in the middle of a community zone? The other facet is territorial privacy, which is just, do I know what space is mine? If this is one long work surface and there's no clear lines of demarcation, that can be sometimes very difficult for someone to know, is it okay to put my stuff here? Am I in somebody else's zone? Are they in mine? cscape was built with the knowledge that particularly in North America, while workstations may be getting a little bit smaller and we want to be more connected with one another, it's still important to have your own space and a good place for your own information to reside. So we talked a little bit about the work surface, we talked a little bit about the connect zone. Now let me talk to you a little bit about the other kinds of things that require a place in the workstation. So if I go back to my handy bag and I begin to take a little look at what's inside here, we typically have to carry in our bag anything that we might need in the course of the day. So important project files, they need a space. And it could be in the back of the work surface, or we designed the storage to be an intentional piling place. Again, protected enough so that it's mine, and I know that it's readily available to me, but also it's really easily accessible for me to be able to see what's in front of me, grab what I need, not forget something when I go to pack up my bag when I go home. It's all right here for me. Likewise, may need to be able to shelter myself from the rain later. It may be that I've got time on the walk station or at the gym later. Having open storage that isn't all enclosed, just really allows me to very easily tuck away things that are very common that I might need without having necessarily try to use a lateral file to accommodate some of these things. In some of our research, we've taken a look at what exists in lateral files today, and if you think about what might be in your own files, cereal boxes, shoes, all sorts of stuff that aren't files, because we have less files. We're doing more stuff digitally. So this was pretty intentional. We said, we know people have objects that they need to store. Let's design the storage around that. We know they have paper, but probably not as much as they used to. Because we have so many technologies, we have along with them a lot of chargers, whether that's an iPod charger, webcam, digital camera charger. These things are important to us, so open storage is great, but sometimes you also want to be able to put something tucked away, personal storage that's lockable. And those devices that you want to charge at work, like a BlackBerry, or maybe you carry your personal iPhone with you, those things can actually be charged right in the storage. So I showed you in the desk that there was power and data there. There's also in the back of the storage the ability to plug in a charger, leave it there if you're going to be in and out of the office, or plug it in when you get in. You can charge devices on top of the storage, or if you want, you can actually route that cord right into the storage, put away your personal devices, and lock it up to make sure they're secure. I want to tell you a couple little things around the storage. You've probably noticed that this bag that I've left sitting here doesn't really have a good place, and we see that in the workplace all the time. So in a small workstation, does your bag go here? Not conveniently. Does it go underneath the desk? Not conveniently. Does it fit into a lateral file? Not always. Back to the open storage. We designed this so that a bag, which you want to keep close to you, is there. It's in your personal area. It's not likely somebody else is going to stumble upon it, but it's convenient for you to grab when you need to run to a meeting. Last thing I want to tell you about the storage is you'll notice that the scale of some of the elements of cscape, particularly the storage, is a little bit smaller than what you've seen in the past. Most lateral files, believe it or not, are designed to accommodate legal paper. If you open up people's drawers, you'll find the back 3 inches of it sit as dead pieces of real estate. We slimmed that down a little bit, designed it around letter-sized paper. You can still do legal side to side if you want to, but we made it a little bit smaller, saved a little bit of real estate. We did the same thing in terms of thinning up the work surface, creating a lighter aesthetic so that it physically is smaller to allow you more room to move around within this workstation, but it also has a lighter look that makes it just look and feel more comfortable even in a small workstation like this one. The last thing I want to tell you a little bit about is some of the user adjustable tools and other things that fit into the Connect Zone that I talked about earlier. So in the back of the desk there's that little rail that we talked about. Also on this center support, which is called the beam, there's also some support. And I just want to point out to you that things like nice centered screens made of fabric, made of glass, these are available to add more boundary. cscape is also easily blended with other Steelcase products like Answer and Montage. So while this is a really open environment that'll probably serve you well for 15 years, if you want to transition slowly into that kind of environment, you can do so by using this with other products. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is actually that there's also a line of user adjustable tools, whether they be lighting, other forms of shelves, etc. Even this personal screen, so that if this becomes a workstation that I'm not just stopping at for the day, but I decide I'm going to live at for a while, I can put pictures of the dog, my family, etc., and personalize this space, even though it's not huge, just for me, the way I like it. And that was the idea behind all the work tools and the screens and the way they interact with the Connect Zone. So I hope you've liked cscape. It's a product that we designed knowing that you make furniture investments typically based on 10, 15-year lease cycles. And if we go back to some of the things we originally talked about the need to be more connected, the need to accommodate mobile technologies, these needs are only going to increase in the next 5, 10, 15 years. We believe cscape is an ideal product to help evolve your workplace over that time. We hope that seeing this presentation of cscape helps you when you go to present the product at your next mock-up. Also want to let you know that some of these props that are so critical to talking about the way people work today, the bag, the umbrella, the shoes, etc., those are all available through the Steelcase Mock-Up Service Center. Just let them know that you need this and you can use them in your mock-up presentation as I did today.